It's when things finally start to move, that the wheels in your life start spinning faster and faster and faster. You're manifesting, you're expanding, you're stepping into the new so much and so quickly that it's extremely overwhelming, ungrounding, exciting, stimulating. Yeah, you bet. And there's very little peace. And it's very common to be always kind of like tender emotionally because you're just at the brink of just pure overwhelm. We just got this new puppy the other day, and we've had dogs before and we forgot how demanding a puppy is. We also have 3 kids. They're home from school. We're moving in under 30 days, and we're woken up at 4 a.m. with this dog crying that needs to go potty, and we're not sleeping. And the other night my wife woke up and she was just in tears. She was like, I just can't do this. There's just too much going on. Too much going on. Too much on my plate. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and I help people navigate through their spiritual awakening process. And today's video is going to share about what I call awakening overwhelm, as I kind of was talking about a little bit earlier. The perception that time and your life is speeding up, and you're just kind of swept away with the speed and pace of life, and it causes you to feel overwhelmed, and it has a lot of different issues that can come up. In this video, you're going to learn about how to manage the overwhelm, why it happens, why it's a great thing. It's a phenomenal thing that you've earned, my friend. It means you're doing a good job with your shadow work, and there's always so much to learn from this, and I haven't seen this discussed anywhere on YouTube. So if you're here, welcome. If you're brand new to my channel, and enjoy the video, my friends. That's what I'm going to talk about today, the awakening overwhelm. It's like a symptom that we go through for a variety of reasons, and it's kind of a complex topic with much to learn and benefit from, even though it seems kind of overwhelming and challenging at times. So how many of you in the last year have felt what I'm talking about? Maybe not in this moment, but the energy of like forward movement, and like there's too much on your plate, too many things going on at once. Yeah, some of you are probably feeling it now. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, in my experience, there's not that we can quantify this. This is just my best attempt to discuss this abstract phenomenon we're all kind of finding ourselves going through from time to time. But in my experience, there's a couple of reasons why this happens. The first one is kind of the more basic one. It's when it's self-created. It's when we're trying to do things too quickly. It's where an example would be like, you know what? I've had enough. I'm going to start meditating every morning and working out 3 times a week. And I'm going to start writing my book. And I'm going to take up a gardening class. And I'm going to heal my father wound. And it's like, it's all good in theory. It makes a lot of sense, but it's like unrealistic. It's setting ourselves up we're overwhelming ourselves sometimes. We're trying to go too quickly. Now, I'm going to not really emphasize that one today. Today I'm going to emphasize more of what seems to be, dare I say, and I rarely credit things to this, but almost like it's like the astrology. It is like the energy sometimes I find in the collective, when all of a sudden we just find ourselves like being swept away with change after change after change, and we're trying to keep up. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and like how to manage it, what to learn from it. There's always a lot of really interesting and valuable lessons within this feeling of being overwhelmed. Okay? So, I want to share some of the things that you can learn from this. One of them is I would say like the worthiness to ask for help. A lot of times we're overwhelmed, and there's a very simple solution, and all it requires is saying, can I get some help, please? Oh, it's so hard for us to do, though. This happens all the time. This happened to me one time anyway, when I was drinking ayahuasca. It was a night that I was at, it was in Las Vegas, so it was in like someone's house, and I drank 2 cups. I took my 2 cups of what is normally a very strong medicine, and I was surprised because I felt nothing. And then because I've sat with these people multiple times, I remember when the closing song came on, and I was like, okay, it's over. I felt nothing. Then I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, I guess it's time to go home. I'd kind of like accepted it and was almost like ready to get the hell out of there. Been laying there for like 7 hours, doing nothing basically, just bored. And all of a sudden, I started to feel it, man. It just came on like a freaking freight train. And I was like, holy shit, you gotta be freaking kidding me. No. I was ready to go to bed. This can't be happening. This is gonna be a 6-hour journey with no ceremony, no space, no shamans. That's exactly what it was, man. It taught that lesson without going into detail. That taught me so much about a lot of things. But anyway, I basically was sort of in this position to endure potentially one of the strongest reactions to the medicine ever without the safety and stability of the music and the shamans and just the community of others going through it with me. It was the end of the ceremony. They all stopped. They all started talking and chit-chatting and eating snacks in the kitchen. But in my hypersensitive state, it was maddening. I couldn't escape. In fact, at one point, the participants, thank God, they went outside, all of them, for a few minutes. And I saw that as my opportunity to go somewhere else. So I grabbed my little mat and my pillow, and I started to go upstairs. I got upstairs and I was like, nope, this is worse. And I went back downstairs and laid there, and they all came back in. It was freaking mayhem. And I was just struggling. I was caught in this loop. I was just resisting. It was too much for me to handle. And finally, after an hour of contemplating this simple little thing, I just raised my hand. And there was a few people there, so I wasn't just raising it for nobody. I raised my hand, and all of a sudden this woman came over who I thought was a helper. And I was like, I just said help. I said, I need help. She was like, oh, honey, I'll get the shaman. The shaman came over. And just the fact that the shaman sat down with me and I could see in her eyes, she wasn't at all concerned. I was concerned. I had all these stories about why something has gone wrong in my head, And she was like, nah, bro, you just gotta, had that kind of attitude. It was like all that anxiety, all that resistance just melted away. And I was swept away in this beautiful journey of just fascinating life lessons and epiphanies and healings. And it was instantly transformed when I finally asked for help. And asking for help can be so hard. Why? Why is it so hard? Why do we think that we're supposed to do this thing called life alone with no help? It's ridiculous, and yet many of us do this. So in this overwhelmed energy, sometimes the invitation is to simply ask for help. So that's one of the lessons. Another thing is just kind of accept the flow of life. Sometimes things get so out of our hands in our life situation that it brings awareness to just the extent that we're always trying to control. But sometimes I think things need to get so out of control to where we have no choice but to yield and let go. It's exhausting to try to maintain everything, And as Alan Watts calls it, he says that life is wiggly. Life is wiggly. It's random. It's dynamic. It's unpredictable. It flows like water, like the feminine. But our minds, the part of us that always wants to control things, it thinks in straight lines. And you can even see that in the roads and the architecture. It's very boxy and straight. We're trying to impose our lines on an inherently wiggly nature of reality. But it doesn't work. It pinches us off from our intuition and the flow of life, and it makes life unnecessarily very difficult. So sometimes I find that things get out of control just so I can accept. I don't have control. I've never had control. None of us have control over the bigness, for lack of a better term, of life. So it can really help almost force you into a state of surrender and inner peace. It's also very good for showing us what's out of place in our life. A lot of times for me anyway, when I'm overwhelmed, there's usually something I'm insisting on doing that no longer is needed. It may have been needed at some point. It may have made perfect sense to spend 2 hours a day doing this, and that. But I've grown and I've changed, but I haven't gotten the memo. It hasn't gotten into my thick head. So even though the scene has changed requiring a new prioritization of where I put my focus and energy, my mind is caught in this loop of doing shit I don't gotta do, basically. And we get overwhelmed, and it sucks, and what's happening? Why is it happening? When will the full moon pass, or whatever? And it's like, well, no. You're doing it to yourself again. You don't need to do this anymore. So sometimes in this energy, if you look around, you can see, I'm wasting my energy in this area that makes no sense. And sometimes if we don't get that memo, life will kind of reflect it to you even more so. Like for me, one time when I was building up my gym, I may have shared this before, I was at a point where I was starting to finally succeed. I finally learned a little bit of the marketing and like how to sell, like do consultations when people came in, and I was pretty quickly building up my clientele, and it was great. It was that energy of expansion and excitement. Things were clicking and working finally. But I found myself like getting more and more and more exhausted, more and more depleted, less and less and less able to keep up with this new pace my life was going at. And I ignored it. I was like, okay, I'm just gotta work harder. You know, that was my mindset at the time. I didn't know any better. And then I got golfer's elbow in both elbows. I was like in my earlier 20s. So it's like, it's not a common thing for like a younger guy to have, let alone in both elbows. Golfer's elbow is really annoying if you don't know. It's like a tendonitis almost in like the joint. So you don't realize how much you grab things. Even picking up a cup of water like this, it would like bother. It would bother it. And I had like wraps on both arms, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Well, you're doing too much, Vic. And this overwhelm, this pain, it led to the idea that maybe you need to hire some help. And I hired a personal trainer to like take on some of the clients. And it was like the clouds parted, and God shined his rays of like love and light on me, and it was instantly better. My golfer's elbow went away. I was able to even grow the gym even more so. So this overwhelm led to a wise adjustment, a fine tuning of where I put my focus and energy, and things got better. So anyways, with all that said, it's difficult. It's difficult when we get overwhelmed like this, and sometimes I think it's just the nature of it. And that's kind of my final tip. If you feel this, or next time, if you do find yourself in this kind of expansion phase where you relate to some of these things, even with all the little lessons I mentioned, it might not be something you're doing wrong. It might just be kind of where your life is at. You're building something, you're growing something, you're moving towards something, and it requires energy, and it requires a sacrifice to other things. It requires a sacrifice maybe to your zen, and you're a little bit ungrounded, a little bit like racy. That's okay too. And my tip is just to roll with it. There's a time to just get shit done. And what helped me a lot is to accept that sometimes I'm just going to be tired. Sometimes I will get overwhelmed as I'm building something new. And it doesn't have to be a problem if I don't decide it is a problem. And if I learn to roll with it and not resist it and think, oh, I need to take my time and pace myself. And sometimes I just let myself go at it, and it will make me unbalanced, but I get a lot done in a very short span of time. To me, it's like a new way of like rapid manifestation, and we just got to go with it, knowing there'll be another dip where we can kind of chill and take a breather.